Greetings, sunshines and sunnies. It is I, Queen J Lotus Pimp Sun Kiss, coming at y'all right quick, right fast, maybe with a reality read. And this is part 3 of the Real Housewives of Atlanta reading, covering specifically this whole beefage between Britt, Edie, and Kenya Moore. And for this part, we will be focused on the confrontation that happened at the vault. Which is the dinner that Miss Angela Oakley put together for the girls. And Miss Kenya showed up with her teal on when everybody was supposed to have on all black, honey. And I heard somebody say, as a joke, it's Angela's fault that all that even happened because Kenya should have been sent home when she came in with that teal on anyway. But that's besides the point. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the specificities of these cards and questions. Now, for this first layout here, we are kicking off with what kicked off the confrontation. So, that would be, well, this ain't the question exactly, because we already know that Angela asked the question that kicked it off. She asked the question, well, she wrote the question that Britt read off that said something about, can you speak nicely to Britt, or something like that. And, Kenya responded, of course, she can speak nice to everybody and all that good stuff. But this question here that I'm referring to is the question that was asked right before that, according to how it was shown on the episode at least. And that question concerned who, child, why is Kenya obsessed with married women and their marriages or something of the sort to that nature? So that's the question that I was referring to for this layout. So what I asked Spirit is, who asked the question, why about Kenya being obsessed with married women and their marriages and all of that? I asked Spirit to show me in the form of zodiac sign, aesthetic, physicality, essence, all that. Okay? So again, this is concerning the question about Kenya being obsessed with married women and their marriages and all that good shit, okay? So, who wrote that question? So, the first card we have here is the Ace of Cups. So, that lets me know that it is a water sign. The Ace element lets me know that it is someone that is very prominent to the situation, the environment that is. Their essence gives main character energy, and this is someone who is very emotional, very passionate and or heartfelt, maybe even very moody type shit, very emotionally transparent even without trying, things of that nature. The Ace of Cups tends to represent someone who is, of course, also rich or has a rich essence, has a wealthy essence. They're often seen as someone who may be like an animated type of personality, but also tends to be someone, like the Ace of Cups specifically tends to be someone who is on the emotionally stable side, despite the fact that they are very animated in their persona and characteristics. Now, I pinpointed specific things. Y'all, please excuse the background noise because for whatever reason, as soon as I start recording, that's when my neighbor likes to come outside and start doing fucking yard work and shit. Anyway, my speaker tends to have good noise cancellation, but I might just put some music in the background just in case. But back to what I was saying. I pinpointed certain things of that nature because when we get to these other cards and revealing exactly who Spirit is saying the person is, the emotionally stable aspect is called into question, okay? But it could also be presented as the Ace of Cups right side up in that manner because this person may see themselves as emotionally stable. So it's not all about what we think. And if you all caught up on the reading, then you would know by now that it's not all about what we think. Anywho, so that being said, we get to the Wheel of Fortune in reverse. And so that card is the one that implements that despite this person being represented by the Ace of Cups, this person, like, all is not as it seems. There's more than what meets the eye. As in, this person may have a physical essence of wealth and aesthetic of wealth and richness and lavish and all of that. But in real life, particularly what's going on in their life right now, is it's in shambles. Their fortune has ran out in some way or another. Their fortune is being called into question. Their cup has been turned over. It ain't runneth over. It has been turned over. It's been knocked over. It's been picked up and thrown in somebody's face and shattered. I'm sorry. But that's what it's given. What's going on in their neck of the woods is in shambles. Okay? So, despite the physicality of what their essence is giving off, the actuality of their essence is the Wheel of Fortune in reverse. It's a very broken frequency and or broke frequency, and that can be figurative and or literal. The energy that I'm picking up is that it is both. This person feels broken in spirit, and they have hit some major financial blows in their life right now, and particularly at the time when all of this was going on. And the way that energy is displaying and radiating off of this person is through the things that they are doing. So spirit is communicating that specifically as basically how they feel about them being the one who wrote this question and their motivation for writing the question as well, amongst the motivation and the roots of certain other things that they have been doing on and off of this show. That being said, we move on to the Chariot sideways. So this person, it seemed like now, and particularly at the time which this was going on in real time, like the time that the scene was being filmed and everything that was going on in their life then as well as now. Basically, spirit saying not much has changed. So they were and are now still in the midst of a lot of different crossroads elements of their life. And spirit is saying this is because they won't do what they know they need to do in order to truly establish balance in their life and in their sense of identity and in their sense of being. And instead, they just keep running from one thing to the next and deflecting the attention and their energy into other people's lives and situations to distract themselves and other people from what's going on in their own life. Tisk, and I'm laughing because with those certain things being said, and also if you know the zodiac sign that the Ace of Cups and the Chariot represent, then you should already know who it is on top of the description that was just given. The Chariot represents the sign of Cancer, and so that also correlates with the Ace of Cups because, like I said, the Ace of Cups is the Cups suit. It represents and encompasses the water signs, which is Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio. So, with the Chariot now showing up here, that lets us know that this is a Cancer. Amongst the fact, how the Wheel of Fortune reverse plays into that. The Wheel of Fortune represents all of the fixed signs. So, being the fact that it's the Wheel of Fortune in reverse, that lets us know that the person is not a fixed sign, in which Cancer is not a fixed sign. And who is a Cancer on the cast? Portia. Now, the thing about it, which is also a reason why this card is sideways, because Portia's birthday is June 22nd. Which makes her a cusp. She is a Gemini, Cancer, Gemini. And what Spirit is communicating by the Chariot card coming out is sideways and the top part of the card is going to the right. This lets us know that in this stage of her life, she's leaning more into her Cancer energy. So, still a cusp, inevitably, because that's just what it is. But right now, in this phase of her life, she's leaning more so into her Cancer energy, her Cancer traits, which in this case would be the jumping from one thing to the next, trying to deflect from what's going on in her life, because this would entail that she is in a state of fear. And the way Cancers handle fear in the way of the nature of a crab is to move frequently and vigorously and to deflect attention from themselves and or to what class? Pull other people down with them and or pull other people into the muck with them, i.e. crabs in a bucket mentality. One thing about crabs as well is that because of their cross to bear, being crabs, coming from their habitat, they are often in a state of fear. Therefore, it is low-key, high-key, a part of their way of being, period. Which is why, i.e., the crab walk is a squatting side step. That's the way crabs move. They do that because in their nature, to move in fear, is to always be running from something to somewhere else with no real sense of direction because their whole motivation is fear, which is attached to also lack, which is what class? Survival mode. So Spirit is confirming a lot about Portia in just this one instance, which is for a long time, and which is also communicated with the Wheel of Fortune being present there. For a long time, she has been stuck in survival mode, constantly sidestepping and side running and deflecting and distracting and grasping and gripping at different things and people, trying to avoid dealing with everything that is at hand and the fear that comes along with it. Which segues us perfectly into why did she do that? Why did she write that question? And why did she word it like that? What's her motivation behind writing the question? And the cards on the bottom row represent the answers for that according to the cards and spirit and my channeling, all that. So yeah. First card on the bottom row to the left of them, we have the moon. So your girl wanted to cause confusion. This is also a self-projection. So it's also giving that a lot of this is kind of impulsive without a whole lot of thought, just acting off a whim type shit, acting off pure emotion, which is why her perception of a lot of shit is distorted and why her way of being is very contradicting. Because here, and especially with the Hermit coming out as one of her cards in general, it gives Portia is smarter than what she leaves on. That's what Spirit is communicating, that she's a lot smarter than what she leaves on, than what she gives even herself credit for, and what she allows herself to function in. She gets caught up in her emotions and in these ideas, and I'm hearing delusions of things, and she just starts doing stuff, just acting off pure emotions. So that's why we have these moments where Portia can make a whole lot of sense and be a voice of reason at times, and then most other times she doing and saying stuff that don't make absolutely no sense, because it's literally as if she's turned her brain off and she's just totally acting off pure emotion, which feeds into her motivation in this moment, which was to cause confusion, was to distort everybody's reality and everybody's view of what's going on, to get the attention off of herself, to distract from what's going on with her. And she's not only wanting to distract everybody else from what's going on with her, she's also wanting to distract herself from what's going on with her. And then when we get to the Hermit card specifically, that is her trying to hermit herself, trying to, once again, take the attention off of herself, trying to isolate herself in a way where everybody is looking at someone else or each other and not her. Such as, also, think about it. Everybody got caught up wondering who wrote the question about Kenya speaking nice to Britt, that they completely, just threw to the wind the question about, being obsessed with married women and their marriages and all that. Okay. So then we have the Princess of Pentacles, which can also be known as the Page of Pentacles, which entails her being messy. And this is also, according to Spirit and the channeling in the card, confirmation and reaffirmation of the fact that the other ladies noticed the tension building between them. They noticed the shade from Kenya and her friends. They noticed what Kenya and her friends were doing to Britt in the meantime, in between time. They noticed the way that Kenya was shading Britt at that first introduction on camera, and, a certain way that she was interacting with her on some nice, nasty shit. They noticed that. And so this is a part of that indication, given a part of Portia's motivation, allegedly, according to Spirit, according to the cards and its channeling, that Portia, that was her way of bringing attention to and validity of Britt's feelings and her experience as she was communicating it. To say, why are you obsessed with married women? That's throwing out the acknowledgement and the validation of, hey, we see you. We see what you've been doing. We see what you've done to Britt. We saw and we heard that shade and what she was saying to her about her marriage and all that. We've been seeing and noticing what's going on. If you also pay attention to Angela acknowledging that she was the one who wrote the other question, the one that really kicked off the confrontation between Britt and Kenya. And in her explaining why she wrote it, she said that she was validating her friend's feelings and experiences. She communicated that reluctantly, right? Go back to the messages that came out about them not wanting to and not being able to speak totally clear on certain things and their experience and perception of certain things because it's certain people that they cannot mention contractually. So it puts everybody in weird compromising position because if they acknowledge it directly, if they validate Britt's feelings and experience totally, then they have to acknowledge everything that's been going on. But they have to acknowledge it to some degree because Britt is speaking on it, and there are allyships at play amongst friendships, but there are allyships at play that complicate things even more. So that's also why this is the Princess of Coins, because while everybody is trying to honor their morals and honor their friendships and all of that, they're also trying to protect their own fucking bag, which means honor their contract to the fullest degree, which also entails that they kind of got to honor their friendships and morals to some degree as well, because if they don't, that can fuck up their allyships, which can turn around and fuck up their bag on the long game front. And so Spirit is communicating that all of that is also going into Portia's motivation for writing that question, because she's trying to satisfy a lot of different avenues. She's trying to satisfy her contract, satisfy herself by not totally satisfying her contract, such as speaking the truth on everything that is really going on in her life. And she's trying to honor her friendships and allyships all at the same time. And it's given that she knew someone else was going to bring it up, or she knew someone else had written a similar question. So she threw that out there to, again, like I said, distract. And it's given that she wanted to write it in a way that wouldn't sound like herself at that rate, so that they would think that it's someone else. It's given that she wanted people to think that it was Britt, which some people, including myself, did suspect that it was Britt. I had also suspected Kelly. I was thinking that Kelly may have written it as well. Because while I suspected Britt, my heart was leaning more towards Kelly because it sounded more like Kelly based on what we've heard of Kelly, and also her response in the confessional to what Kenya was saying about Britt's ring and all of that in the first episode. It sounded like Kelly to me and how Kelly talked. So that low-key high-key makes sense that she intentionally wrote it in a way to throw off, to try to sound like somebody else so that nobody would suspect that it was her that wrote it. Because I ain't gonna lie, I didn't suspect it. I suspected for it to say that it was Britt or Kelly or a producer or something of the sort. But according to this layout, it was Portia's ass. We're gonna move on to the next layout. All right, now for this layout, we focusing on why did Britt threaten whips? Whips specifically. Why did she bring up whips as a threat? Veiled threat, whatever, what have you, okay? Why did she bring up whips? And the first card that we have on the top row over to the left of them is the Three of Swords in reverse. So this is letting us know once again, if you're caught up on the whole saga of it all, this is letting us know again that Britt has an anger problem. Okay, so in general, when she gets to this place, as she described, honestly, when she gets to this place, that's where her mind goes to whatever it is that will inflict pain or fear, whatever it is that she feels like she's feeling. So if she feels internally tortured, then what she will communicate is torture. And so that's what this is giving. Her feeling internally tortured and therefore spitting out verbal torture. And let alone communicating that of a weapon that is used for torture. So direct correlation there. Accompany that with the Tower card that is sideways. And I believe in part 2, it was brought up about Kenya trying to create tower moments for her. So that's interesting that here we have the Tower card. Tower card here sideways as Britt's motivation for bringing up whips. Britt seems to be very empathic, very intuitive to some degree. And it's given that she recognized that Kenya has some sort of fear of change, if you will, that certain types of spontaneity make her uncomfortable. So that was also a part of the mentality behind her bringing up the whips. particularly. Wanted to throw her off. Wanted to communicate to her basically, I'm a wild card. You never know what to expect with me, ma'am. You don't know me. Don't fuck with me. It also gives, you're trying to do something to me, but you don't realize that it's really about to happen to you. That's how that just came out. So I'm gonna put the quote to it. The grave that you're trying to dig for me is one that is actually prepared for you, type shit. And so it's also like God don't play about me. That's also like the energy transfer that Britt is trying to give there. It's also the sort of thing like on Euphoria where the trans girl, I can't remember her name, but the trans girl cuts herself to like communicate to the jock bully dude that she crazy and she not want to be fucked with. It's kind of that same motivation and energy. So it's on some, you don't know me, I'm crazy. Just mind your business. That's all. Just mind your business. That's what it's giving. And then with the King of Pentacles in reverse, she wanted Kenya to feel degraded. She knew that the term whips is one that is triggering in more ways than one. So that's exactly what she wanted to give off. She wanted to be triggering. She wanted Kenya to feel degraded and deprecated by, hearing that term specifically as a, in the form of a threat, veiled threat, however it's labeled. That's the energy that, is given that she was trying to give off, allegedly, according to Spirit and the channeling. There's also this veiled, of course it's a veiled threat, but this veiled communicating of, I don't want to say this because that's heavy, that's wild, and that's some shit to have out there. But this is what's coming up in the channeling. And I pride myself on truth, and I recognize it as a part of my purpose. And so I got to be honest about what is coming up here that Spirit wants to be communicated according to the cards and the channeling, honey. So her bringing up whips in particular is also, and this is also attached to the like wanting Kenya to feel deprecated and less than and degraded and things of that nature. There's this veil communicating of, I don't have to touch you. I got people that will scoop you up, tie you up, and beat your ass, like fuck you up, torture you, handle you. I ain't got to do nothing you. I got people for that. So yeah, it's to communicate that I can get wicked on a whole nother level without saying specifically that. And that's her understanding that the term whip, the presence of a whip, communicates a different level of status, which is really creepy if you think about it, Moving on over to that escape card. And it came out sideways, so we get both sides of the messages. So right side up, it's the number 9, and it says, doubts weigh heavy and the leap forward seems too far. Crushed by burdens of reality, seeking solace in the thoughts of vanishing. And the other side says, if you are feeling overwhelmed or trapped, I feel it too. When you are escaping to find peace, I'm doing the same. Our bond is strong and sometimes difficult to understand. So from the right side up messages, it's given that Britt was feeling overwhelmed by the situation. She was just deep off in her feelings again, has an anger problem, deep off in her feelings, blacked out and just flying off the handle, saying whatever. It's also given that ordinarily she would have been put hands on Kenya. Because again, that song is starting to ring. I don't fight, I don't argue. I just hit that bitch with a bottle. I hit that bitch with a bottle. That song, as I have been doing this reading, that seems to have been Britt's theme song. So Spirit has been steadily communicating and reiterating that Britt has a history of putting the pause on him. And in this moment, she was prepared to put the pause on him, but she knew she couldn't put the pause on him. So her mind just went to saying things that would communicate, I will hurt you. The other side of that is communicating for one, Britt feeling internally tormented. And Spirit is saying that that internal torment is coming from not being able to speak directly to the situation due to the contractual obligations at hand. Can't speak on certain specific people, can't say specifically certain things because, they have to flow with a specific narrative that is going on for the show and what the producers have marked in the minutes and, all of that. Make sure you're caught up on the whole playlist. You'll understand exactly what I'm saying. But yeah, it's given she had a whole lot to say and a whole lot she could have said, but she will have ended up breaching her contract and putting herself and everybody else in a compromising position with that. But it's like it ended up happening regardless because she ended up saying some more shit that ended up causing some compromisations. But it's given that, and I know that this sounds crazy. But it's giving her veiled threats were less of a compromisation to the network than her saying specifically, bitch, you and your friends keep fucking with me, da 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 da, and exposing all the rest of the other depths of the storyline that would cause them to have to come out of pocket with more money to, have to do paperwork and potentially have to pay other people and all that other shit. So yeah. Spirit is also saying that the internal torment that she was feeling was also coming from knowing that they were supposed to be cool. Again, if not friends, but at least fun associates. They were supposed to be good time girls. But here they are, beefed out, and it's weird, and it's tension, and Kenya is acting like, she a stranger type shit. And like she don't know her, like talking about. And of course, after hanging out a couple of times, she may not know her. But Kenya was acting like she didn't know her from a can of paint. Like she ain't ever seen or heard of the girl ever. Okay? Who is this hoe? And we'll get to that in the next part. But for this next layout, why did Britt bring up the guns? So we have the Queen of Pentacles in reverse, the Magician in reverse, the King of Swords in reverse, and the Ten of Wands in reverse. Which gives that she was totally off her shit. She was totally off her rocker. It's again reiterating that Britt has had a very hard, long struggle with anger. Not just anger, with rage. With not having any good stability with processing anger. And Spirit is saying that while she has been doing a good job at stabilizing her emotions and processing her anger for a while, at that particular moment, it's like she was taken back. And based on the cards that came out, the Queen of Pentacles in reverse, the King of Swords in reverse, the King of Pentacles had also came out in reverse for her in the last layout. And then we also have the Magician in reverse. These big, major, high-ranking cards coming out in reverse gives that one major thing in the moment specifically that really set her off, that triggered her blacking out like that, is the peasant comment. It's given that some other things were said under Kenya's breath that were edited out from the scene that were along the lines of like the peasant connotation, and it seemed like that really fucks with Britt. That's something that she don't really play about, that she got a very like low tolerance about type shit. So the people who felt like that's what triggered it, the cards and the channeling according to Spirit and my channeling and these cards and all of that, that's confirmation right there that peasant comment did set her off. It sent her back to her old mindset of fuck a bitch up, knock, hoe, had a lot to say. So it seemed like it took her back to a specific place that was very traumatizing for her, where she felt like she had absolutely nothing to lose. And it's not just the peasant word. That peasant comment, it's like it brought back the flashing of everything that she had experienced from Kenya and her friends up until that point, and then all the way back to whatever that traumatizing time was in her life. It seemed like she was dealing with some type of similar dynamic of her coming into a new environment, a new job or something of the sort perhaps, and this group of girls feel like she don't have no right to be there, and so they are fucking with her and picking at her on some mean girl shit, on some spiritual and psychological warfare type shit. So in that moment, and this is what Spirit is communicating according to the cards and the channeling and all that, in that moment when Kenya made that peasant comment, it just flashed all of those memories, right before her eyes, and she clicked the fuck out. and it took her to a place where she felt like she didn't have nothing to lose. It reminded her of a time where she felt like she didn't have nothing to lose, and still trying to, maintain her progress, and also her higher self coming in for her to show her her progress, her not actually acting in the way that she did in the past, in the way that she would have in the past, which would have been to lay hands in a physical sense. So she actually just started to verbalize the physicalities of what she may have been fantasizing, if you will. So that's also specifically what that Ten of Wands in reverse communicates. Her being fuckless, her going to a place of not giving a fuck, just throwing it all to the wind. Like, fuck this money, fuck my spirituality, fuck being careful with my words. I will whip this bitch's ass, and I got my pistols, and pow, 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 and where my husband? Like, that's what all that's giving. That's what, Spirit is saying, according to the channeling in the cards and the reading and all of that, that was Britt's mindset and motivation behind the gun, as well as in the last layout, the whip, veiled threats, and all that. So I believe we can go ahead and get on to the next layout. All right. So with this card here, I'd ask, was Kenya genuinely afraid? Did she genuinely feel threatened in the moment by Britt's veiled threats? And we have the Justice card here, which is a big old fat yes, especially being the fact that Britt is a Libra, and the Libras are represented by the Justice card and justice in general. So straight up, Kenya was genuinely afraid. She did genuinely feel threatened in the moment by the stuff that Britt was saying. And this is another, allegedly, according to the reading and the channeling, okay, this is another confirmation that that Kenya knew of Britt before filming, okay? She knew more about Britt. She knew more of Britt than she was letting on, and then she is letting on, because this is a reiteration of Britt having a reputation of being violent and Kenya knowing it. Because another reason why it's important to point out Britt being a Libra and the Justice card and justice in general representing Libra is because this is also communicating Kenya's perspective. So when Britt spit out those veiled threats, Kenya in her mind was like, there she is, there she go, I see her. Like, she in her mind, like, I see you, that's it, that's what I've heard about, that's what everybody been talking about, that's what I've been knowing about you, you a violent biatch. So when she says in the car, please do something to me so she can be off this show, that's connected to all the other connecting dots of Kenya was waiting for a moment for Britt to do or say something that would get her kicked off of the show, that would be a representative of Britt's reputation of being violent. So Kenya was genuinely afraid also because Kenya knows that's who and how Britt is known to be. That type stuff really be crazy. But honey, that was very simply stated, so we ain't got to stay there too long. We're going to go ahead and go to the next layout. Now for this layout, which will be the last layout for this particular part, but not least, okay? Because for this layout, we are focusing on why was Britt not fired for her veiled threats? Why they ain't fire that girl or suspend her or whatever? So, for starters, up to the left of them, we have the Five of Cups in reverse, which communicates that there was an agreement such as since and if you'll forget this, we'll forget that if you do this, okay? Oh, you washed our back, we'll wash yours, but you got to do this one other thing type shit. So what Spirit is showing me is that Britt was called to the carpet about her comments, and she didn't confront this alone. She had a village of some sort. So this could be lawyers, her husband, both family members. She may have also had letters of recommendation written for her as well. Like, she immediately knew that she had fucked up, and she immediately faced it on every level. So by the time she was called to whoever's office or, to whoever to have the conversation, she came with everything that she already needed to state her claim and also make her demands. Because along with certain things the spirit is also has already communicated, they're reiterating that she brought up to them, as well as they acknowledge that a particular type of environment had been mindlessly facilitated, and that also certain things had happened between her and a cast member and other people that had been on set and around the work environment. But the things that happened were, beyond their control, but it's like still her lawyers somewhere in her village and whatnot, they were able to find where the network would still be held liable for that, if you will, and for it to be highly considered as a acceptable considerable factor, an acceptable considerable factor as to why she would get to that point of anger and say something that, like what she said. So it's like, in a way, being handled like that of a student who is showing signs and or the potential to be a, I'm gonna spell it backwards. Well, I'm gonna spell the first part of it backwards, and then I'm gonna say the second part with a word that rhymes with the real word, okay? So the way spirit is communicating and showing it to me, she was being handled like a student that has the potential to be, and or that is showing signs that they have the potential to be a SSAM scooter, okay? As a result of being bullied. And even though the worst of it may not have happened on quote unquote school grounds, it still happened between classmates, and enough happened on school grounds to where the principal and the teachers, quote unquote, should have and could have intervened. So the escalating of that, they have to take accountability for her getting to a point of feeling as though she would need to threaten, even in a veiled sense, weapons, okay? So if she's being bullied by a group of people that she works with, then it's like they were able to communicate that it makes sense that she would get to a point where she feels a need to say this type of thing, amongst the fact of her essentially having to be silenced about it one way or another. So that part also gives, you're facilitating a certain type of environment, and or you're facilitating a certain type of dynamic going on that is toxic, and you're exploiting parts of it, and you're silencing the quote unquote victim. Okay? So hopefully y'all are picking up what is being put down here. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next card, which is the Nine of Cups. So this communicates that the network has an attachment to her. Of course, the obvious, but literally they valued her presence, her existence on the show and as a part of the network. They really want to work with her. They like her chemistry with certain other people on the show. They like her chemistry with certain people that are a part of the network, such as other producers, other execs, and people that are a part of the whole machine. They like her energy. They like what she brings. They like members of her team, members of her village. They feel like she has a lot to offer them, not just for this show, but also in general and beyond this show. So to tie that also with the Five of Cups over there, this is the part where it's like, okay, in acknowledging the part that they played in her detriment, and her acknowledging her fuck up and saying what she said, they're also, of course, acknowledging that they value her and all of that. And so asking her too to show value for them and the network and her position by publicly acknowledging her fuck up and apologizing and taking accountability. So that goes into her doing what she did on the show, her apology tour, coming on and communicating and constantly reiterating that she apologizes, that she was wrong, getting the flowers, taking them to Kenya, and all of that. And when we get into the Knight of Wands, over to the bottom left, it's also sideways. So this is them acknowledging her potential, where she is, and the potential of where she has to go. So again, acknowledging that they value her presence and the presence of everything that she has to offer, and them really feeling like they really want to be a part of molding her and be a part of helping her evolve into everything that she really can be. It seems as though she fits a particular persona type of character or something of the sort, that they've been trying to really push to launch to like a Nene Portia type level, and they haven't been able to do it. They really want to do it with her. They like how much of a wild card she is, and they want to really help her figure it out, and they want to figure it out themselves, how to polish her. That's the word that's coming up. How to polish someone like her, package it, and sell it in a grand way. Which leads to the Ten of Cups card, which just blatantly reaffirms and confirms everything about them feeling like she is a very valuable addition to the team, and they want to play a part in capitalizing off of that and have her capitalize off of them as well. They are really trying to form and evolve and elevate a mutually abundant relationship with her. I don't know what it is exactly all that she got, but seems like she got a whole lot of shit that they like and that they want. And it's a whole lot more than what meets the eye, apparently. But child, they see her as highly valuable. Needless to say, they see her as highly valuable. And that also communicates that they highly appreciate her willingness to cooperate with the processes of certain things and her willingness to face things. Like, that's what I'm hearing specifically. They really appreciate her willingness to face and confront things without having to be tugged and pulled and all of this other stuff. So then when it gets to that Ace of Cups, once again, that Ace of Cups that is now sideways here, one part of this indicates that there are other cast members that were speaking on her behalf, that were playing a major role in, talking up on her reputation, her image, and on the fact that basically, like, they didn't feel threatened by her. They didn't feel like in general she was someone who, was a threat or a danger to anyone or themselves. So also being the fact that this is a reoccurring card, it could also indicate that Portia is a part of those people, and it could indicate that the other water sign cast members are a part of those people who were speaking on Britt's behalf, making her look good, and doing what they could do to help Britt keep her job. Now, the other part of this as well gives, if we pay attention to the side that this card is leaning to, and y'all, I bring attention to that totally based off intuition and discernment. So, just a little FYI. But yeah, if you notice this card, it is sideways and the top part is going to the left side. And with that, Spirit is communicating that there were also cast members that were speaking against Britt. And in the midst of that, it gives that one or some of them that were speaking against her, they said or did something in efforts to make her look bad, but it actually made her look better. And the person who did this, it made themselves look worse. So I'm not, of course, me personally, I'm not saying anything is without allegedness, of course. But according to the channeling, whoever this is, it could be Kenya, or it could be someone who is an ally to Kenya, or it could be both. But whatever it is that they said or did about and or to Britt, or towards Britt, in efforts to try to get her officially fired, and it ended up making themselves look worse, it has something to do with them being a part of bullying her in general. And so it's something that they ended up, like I said, trying to make her look bad, but they end up exposing something about themselves to where it was like, now see, even if we was finna fire her, now we really can't, because what you just said or did that ended up exposing such and such, it ended up exposing that whatever it is that was exposed, we can't fire her if we wanted to. We can't fire her if we plan to now, because that right there could get them sued. So I don't know what that is. Spirit is not showing me or telling me exactly what it is, but whoever it is that was in the collective of trying to get Britt fired, and ended up exposing something about themselves that was unsavory and incriminating, it played a major role in Britt keeping her job, because whatever it was that was exposed was a liability. Mm-hmm. This is very layered. So, that's it for this part of this whole saga of the reading. And I'm saying that the next part, which will focus on Kenya's presentation, I'm saying that that will be the last official part. But based on certain things that came out amongst these other parts, it's very clear that more is bound to come out. And also, it make me feel like I need to do some follow-up readings to certain parts of these different parts of the reading, on certain things that came up, to, see if we can get some confirmation, further clarity on certain things that came out. For example, on that last card, who was it that was on Britt's side trying to help her keep her job? Who was it that, was against her and ended up incriminating themselves? What was exposed that played a major role in her keeping her job when their intent was to try to get her to lose her job? Just a whole lot came out that made me want to do some follow-up readings to gain some clearer understanding about some things. And also, like I said, it made it very clear to me that a whole lot more shit is bound to be exposed in real time, because there's a whole lot of. But this is another one where I gave a lot of my commentary in the mist. So, with all that being said, y'all, if I do say so myself, honey, I have milked this cow dry. And I'm thoroughly appreciative for the exchange of vibes. And if you're feeling synchronized, please do me a divine design and like, share, and subscribe, so that you could be one of the first to be back through these queenly quarters for the next time. And be sure to bless my comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you in all ways like love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah.